Hello and welcome to Storyboard. I'm Shivani Kharat. India is going through a dire second wave of COVID-19 pandemic with more than 350,000 cases reported every single day. The sentiment is grim. In such a scenario, how do brands and marketers react and connect with the consumer? What is the role that they can play and what should be the ideal approach and strategy to follow? Today we are discussing this as we have our groups Rana Barua on the show with us, Leo Burnett's Dheeraj Sinha and Aditi Mishra from Lodestar. All of you, welcome to Storyboard.
Thank you.
Rana, let's begin with you. Let's begin this discussion. And before discussing what is the approach that brands and clients should follow, I want to first understand how are they reacting to this entire second wave. You know, we are already a couple of weeks down into the second wave. What is their reaction? Because I'm sure even at their end, they must be going through this apocalypse of sort. It's over and above, it's an understatement to call it a crisis now.
So I think, Shivani, thanks for getting me on this conversation. I think, it's interesting, one, because it's extremely challenging, very tough. And I don't think, come what may, whatever we are hearing outside in the environment, anybody was prepared for this kind of calamity or this kind of conversation today suddenly. But what we are gathering, at least across the group of companies, at least in the Havas group and the clients that we are speaking, I think everybody is trying to first figure out the challenges within. So while there is communication work kind of happening, but I would say that overall would have probably got a bit deprioritized, not for any other reason, but I think the impact has happened across the group of people. And that's whether it's us as a group of companies or all our clients and their people and down the line, because I think the cases are, it's obvious the cases are way too high, but I think the cases have hit within the group, within the companies, within the people, within your family. So I think a lot of conversations are now about health and wellness about the people and the clients, while there are certain clients, I'm sure, getting ready to figure out what we need to do. And of course, there was this entire IPL conversation and all. But I think in the last few weeks, it has been more about just kind of managing a status quo about what is happening and not kind of re-engage or change, and probably just wait for a few weeks, maybe some more days, and see what we need to do, and then probably re-engage in certain conversations about brands and what we need to do. Do we need to pull out, pull back, and all that? At least that's what I'm gathering.
Okay, Dheeraj, what about you? How are your clients reacting to this? What has been their, reaction to this entire second wave and the pandemic?
So, obviously, I agree with what Rana is saying. I think in this round of pandemic, the primary focus of agencies and clients is to protect our people, because if we have people, we can do business. Having said that, I think so conversation across the spectrum, right? I mean, there are certain clients where we were to launch a campaign and we were preparing for shoot, campaign, etc., and so on and so forth. And there the conversation is that the campaign that we have, is it in the right tonality? Can we go ahead with that campaign, even if we were to say able to shoot in a month's time? Would that be the tonality that you would go with, or would you want to revisit your platform altogether? So there are certain clients who are in that bucket or zone. There are certain other clients with whom we are having an active conversation to say that forget advertising, right? To have a conversation whether our current advertising, is it tone deaf or is it context sensitive, to my mind is a very small conversation to get caught in at this point in time, because people who aren't really checking whether your ad is COVID sensitive, right? They are checking where can they get oxygen, where can they get medicine, can they get a bed for their loved one. And having been through that personally in last few days, right? I also feel that brands have a larger role to play, right? In a context where a lot of the public systems have kind of failed. Right? I mean, when you see a Tata company importing, say, oxygen, or when you see a certain other platform, or say Amazon for that matter, bringing in oxygenators and oxygen, you somewhere in your mind realize that these guys care for me, right? So I believe that brands need to have a quasi-social role, not just now, but for many more years to come. The question will be asked of the brand that during the good time, You were running campaigns worth 50 crores on media. When there were bad times, where were you? Right? So the option is not to sit on the sidelines. Option is not to debate whether my advertising is COVID sensitive or not. That's least of the worry. The option in front of the brands is to go out and say, how can I help you? How can I help you? Maybe through entertainment. How can I help you through oxygen? How can I help you through building a platform? How can I help you through giving you access to doctors? Whichever way, whatever be my core of the business, how can I help you? And we are having this conversation with a lot of clients, and we are in the middle of developing some platforms, etc., for many of them, where we genuinely reach out as a brand and a business to people and do something that matters to people at this point in time.
So, Dheeraj, but in spite of that, when I'm switching on TV, let's say, for example, to like watch a movie channel or any GC or even IPL till a couple of days ago, the kind of creatives that were on these channels were completely tone deaf and, away from the reality that we are facing today. Like, for example, people stepping out and having a gola on the streets, or like somebody gathering together and taking pictures, etc. So these were the kind of creatives that were seen. Yeah. Does it make sense for them to pull it down, or does it make sense for them to completely change creative at all? Because at these times, you don't want to look insensitive to the scenario that we are in. I know that we have had this conversation earlier on how you absolutely do not want to send any production teams on ground for reshoots and stuff like that. But still, does it really make sense?
See, it's a tough one, Shivani. It's a very, very tough one, right? And the debate can be on both sides, right? A set of people can say it's insensitive, tone deaf, pull it out. But my point is that there is a consumption economy, right? There are millions of people out there. And I know for sure that consumer demand across categories such as food, snack is going up, right? Because people are sitting inside, they are making snacks, I mean, they're cooking stuff, right? Also, I feel that consumers have an ability to compartmentalize, right? I mean, when you're watching a Maggie ad and this Maggie being made in your home, you don't expect that Maggie ad to be done through a mask. And so on and so forth, right? So people understand this is consumption. This advertising is promoting this particular brand, its attributes. That's fine, right? My point is that go ahead and do that. If you have consumer demand, you need marketing, you need to fulfill that. That's your job. But also, with the other hand, make sure that on ground, you are kind of pushing the cause in a big way. And I agree with you. I mean, as a CEO of an agency, right, we had this earlier this month, we had the entire crew returning back from a shoot being COVID positive, right? And we don't, at this point in time, have the wherewithal to get them a bed or oxygen or any of that. I mean, it's out of our control. So I would not want to send out my team right now to reshoot that ad just to make it COVID sensitive. What impact will it bring? None. I would much rather, if I have the resources, use that, provide 100 more oxygen cylinders on ground.
Absolutely. Fair point, Dheeraj. Aditi, moving over to you, whatever I'm seeing right now on TV, on various digital platforms, is three categories in which you can divide, the clients and brands. One is, of course, they are completely, completely, let's say, continuing with whatever is happening is what we discussed right now, which is business as usual. The second category would be completely silent about the current situation and, not engaging, not sharing, not connecting, not communicating at all. And the third category is, of course, these brands playing the role of a good Samaritan. For example, what ITC did in Kolkata was to convert a stadium and keep 200 beds right there. So these are the three categories that I'm seeing of brands and marketers currently. Do you see that too? And which role should they play right now, according to you?
So see, I agree with what Dheeraj said, that, consumers can compartmentalize and they see advertising as advertising. They are not necessarily feeling that brands are insensitive. So that's one. Secondly, I just want to add another issue. While we are facing physical challenges in terms of beds, oxygen, and so on, But there is a larger population, and I would say especially children, who are really suffering. And there are other issues like mental health, for example, which is cropping up. And we don't really have any easy answers or solutions. And a lot of communication, content, gaming, these are what I would call moments of succor or break, which, people take for a reset before they come back. And it is an important thing for brands to be present in those places, because, a brand which is talking about a positive moment, or which is, by its inherent nature, about a moment of joy, it is difficult for that brand to suddenly communicate in a very different way. So it needs to stand for what the brand is true to. However, that done, the brand, rather than the brand, I would say the corporate actually needs to take steps which are about securing what their people are going through, which are about, partnering with initiatives. We spoke about ITC. There are many other corporate who have come up and who have donated, who are doing specific things, whether it's about their own products, which they can donate because they are essentials and they're required, or whether it's about partnering and trying to create situations where other people can benefit. So that is happening. The other thing that I've also seen in a lot of our clients is that they are very conscious now of their own teams. So there are like days which are given off. There are no meeting days or no meeting weeks, so that people can take that time out. Because while business has to go on, but everybody understands that this space is required for people. So I think people are doing that.
Okay, okay. And if at all, because Rana, this is the time where a lot of summer brands are also active. They're many launching their new products, many coming up with a completely different product line. So summer brands, ke liye, it's very important time right now. If at all they have to communicate and engage with the consumer, which according to you is the best medium to do so?
So if you see what's happening currently, naturally, that the mediums are very clear. You have television, which is going to become your prima facie source of entertainment because we are all home. It's all locked down. And of course, any form of digital, whichever form that be, is because a lot of us are either in some device or the other, and so are a lot of the youth and teenagers. So I think both forms are going to play and will continue to play. And we've seen even last year, or whatever numbers and all we've seen are going to be two very dominant mediums, will continue to play a very strong role, very strongly engaging platforms. And I think just to take one more point into this conversation where Dheeraj brought up, and I thought that was absolutely right, is that, the consumers actually compartmentalize is a very right word, that when they come to these mediums, when they look at ads or they look at some stuff and all, they know this is a commercial or they know this is entertainment. They understand this is a, like he said, a Maggie ad is a Maggie ad, and they do understand that this is. I think what the corporates are doing is that for their brands and for their sustenance and for their conversations and ensuring that the business is as usual, they keep, making these work and they ensure that they're communicating to their audience and all. But I definitely am seeing a lot more of these corporate houses doing much more than ever before, including, agency networks, advertising network. Today, I've just heard a very large media network has come out with a certain number or something to help the entire victims and all. I think this wasn't there last year. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see this kind of an involvement of how can we help in our way? How can we help our own people in our way? Whether it's about vaccination, whether it's about supporting them with something, whether it's about helping their family with any mental health and status. And in terms of clients, I think we are trying to give them the best services in terms of communications, results, whatever and all, and just sustaining the momentum. Because, the business has to continue. Business cannot stop because that will become extremely deterrent, which we all are debating. We keep debating partial lockdown, flexi lockdown, full lockdown. Business cannot stop. We've seen the impact it had last year. We cannot have a business impact.
Storyboard, and today we are discussing how should brands respond to the crisis that we are in currently, and what is the strategy and approach that they should follow during these grim times. Dheeraj, what we saw when it comes to social media last year as compared to this year was social media was full of these preventive measures against the pandemic in the last lockdown, which we had exactly 1 year ago. This year, it has transformed into sort of an SOS platform, asking for ambulance, asking for help with when it comes to oxygen, for plasma, for blood donation. All of these things are being shared actively on social media platforms. there are brand handles with huge following running into billions or millions of followers. How can they utilize these platforms and engage in the kind of conversations that the audience is having on these platforms?
Yeah, I think the reason brands are not being able to jump in because they probably don't have the resources to be able to help with the oxygen or the bed or the doctor or the medicines, right? If you look at people who are having these conversations or who are being tagged, are the people who are actually mobilizing resources on ground, the Hemkund Sahib, platform or so on and so forth, because they have amassed oxygenators, they are reaching out to people, they are making that happen. So even before brands try to get on this bandwagon, what they need to do is put the act together to be able to have that one platform, either for oxygen or for mental health or for information dissemination or access to doctors or something. I mean, in this point in time, just trying to leverage the conversation would be terrible. So you have to, as I said, it's not the time for advertising or participating in the social media narrative. It is a time to act. And the brands must act in the best ability that they have. I would say just saying that for one day I will do no advertising or I don't think that's enough. I think it's just tokenism, and tokenism would get found out very, very quickly in this environment.
And just mere lip service or window dressing can be caught by the audience very fast. Aditi, what do you think on this? Can they engage? Can they share these conversations on their own handles?
So I agree, the danger, the other side of this is because your reach is so high. If your information is not authentic, if your, whatever you're proposing is not real at that point of time, it can go very, very wrong. And we see this in some of the personal social media handles that, by the time you figure out that there is a bed somewhere or there is oxygen somewhere, in the next 5 minutes, it's over. So the danger is that if a brand gets into this kind of a space and say pushes out messages where it's not authenticated, then that can have a lot of harmful impact. And it's a very dangerous place to venture into. So unless a brand genuinely has, like I said, its own products, which it is offering in a certain way, places you can order something, those are genuine initiatives that should be taken. But otherwise, a brand, unless it's ready, should not get in, because this is the time to be authentic. It's the time to be real. You cannot pretend to be something you're not. It's absolutely not the right frame to be in. And I think it's going to be very, very important for any brand moving forward that they continue to stay real and authentic in their messaging.
Okay. Rana, moving over to your side of the business, we had seen last year a lot of advertisers had to sit tight during the first phase of the lockdown, which was right in the month of April and May. And they were sitting tight, and we saw how substantially most of the mediums, let's say like print and outdoor, degrew in the last 1 year. And suddenly they had started, like catching some pace in terms of, the spends. And we are back to square one again. How do you look at the situation, and what will be your advice to clients?
So I think, the sad part of the story is that the businesses which were showing some bit of a resurgence, like you mentioned, the outdoor, and, we have an experiential marketing agency within the group. The businesses were not really back in a big way, but they had started showing a resurgence because people were, coming back to many conversations of launches, of activations, of etc. So again, it's back to, honestly, it's back to ground zero. So the businesses have got impacted again. Again, it's about when do things look up and everything. So that's very unfortunate. But keeping that in mind, I think, it's again, a lot of conversations are going back on the drawing board. So it's like, we probably moved 6 months quite fast. Let's keep every other conversation aside. I'm just talking about client and agency here. I think we were getting into a lot of multi-business plans, conversations about what needs to be done and all. I think we'll have to slow it down. We'll have to just watch, because this environment has to clean up. The vaccination has to happen. So once those things happen and we get back in some kind of an order in the environment, I think we'll probably catch the momentum back. And honestly speaking, a month to here and there, and we've seen it last year, Shibani, a month to here and here, the kind of country we are and the kind of population and people that we are and the number of this entire, this confidence that we have, we can bounce back. But I think the next 2-3 months, you're going to see a bit of a pullback. I don't know whether it's going to directly correlate, but businesses are definitely getting impacted for sure again in the next few months till we kind of come out of this mess.
Okay, okay. On this note, final comment, guys. We speak about building immunity for individuals, and in these uncertain times, where government has already said that third wave is inevitable and they have already started preparing for the third wave, how do we build immunity for brands in the coming days? Dheeraj, let's begin with you.
Yeah, see, I would say that we agonize a lot about what's the proposition for the brand in the marketplace, right? I think it's time that the way I see the brand shape up, brands need to behave like citizens. They need to behave like they are part of the social fabric, and every brand must have what's your social proposition, not just a market proposition, right? And social proposition not as CSR, that's something I do as 2% of mandatory what government asks me to do, but social proposition, the heart of my business, right? So when you're crafting your brand prism or brand Q or whatever your fancy is, I'd like a box there which says what's my social proposition and how am I going to champion this. This will become more and more critical because consumers will watch out that have you cared for them when they needed it or not, or was care only a word in your brand key?
All right, that's having a social proposition. Aditi, over to you.
So I think just building on that, very important that brands should be clear about what do they stand for. The other part I think which is going to become progressively important is the agility and how easy you can make things for them. How easy you can make access, how easy you can make an experience and an interaction so that they can buy you, they can use you in a much better fashion. So how do we use technology? How do we use other resources that a brand might have to enable that? I think that's going to be another important facet as well.
So, Aditi, and sticking with the point of agility, in fact, we have seen agility as as an important feature in making your plans has been discussed for quite some time. Have you seen the change over the past 1 year compared to the last lockdown? Has there been a learning, and has the learning been applied by brands? Have you seen that change?
So, it's a mixed bag, I would say. So yes, there was a lot of learning. Brands did come a long way. They were much faster in terms of, maybe understanding the impact of a lockdown and reacting to it at a market level or a geographic level. So those things did happen. But that said, I think the current situation, especially the last 1 month, has been absolutely so challenging that, all this has gone to a little bit of a back burner. People are, both brands, marketeers, people at agencies, everybody's just struggling to make things happen. So I think right now it's not so much of a focus. Once things normalize, then probably we'll put these learnings back. We'll see how to, take them forward.
Okay, so social proposition, working on agility. Rana, what's your take?
I think the same philosophy that we've seen, and actually it's an in-house tool of our study, and it's very similar to what Dheeraj was saying. What we call it as the meaningful brand philosophy, and we've been talking about it globally. We've seen it across all the countries. I didn't know it's going to catch up in India so fast, So what is clearly coming out is that brands which are going to be strongly relevant, and just not relevant means by doing some service or something, it has to have an emotional cord. And just to reiterate the point that, if I'm here with you during your good times is when you have invested in me, I'm going to stick around with you during your bad times. So I need to have a very strong, meaningful connection with you, and it will be a quid pro quo relationship. So I see brands building on that, and I see consumers also working in that kind of a relationship.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on Storyboard this week. You can catch all of our content on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll be back same time next week. See you soon.